Moving on to the next important story we have been tracking all week. A major political controversy has erupted in the United States over H-1B visas, sharply dividing the Trump camp ahead of his swearing in. Prominent Republicans are criticizing Tesla CEO Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy for supporting the program, while Musk and Ramaswamy argue that the program helps America attract top talent. Many Trump supporters and Republicans contend that it undermines the America First agenda and harms American workers. For now, former President Donald Trump has backed Musk, expressing support for H-1B visas. But it's worth noting that the denial rate for the visa petitions increased from 13% in 2015 to 24% in 2018, before dropping to 4% by the end of Biden's first year in office. The Indian government has said that the visa program is beneficial to both nations, and India is looking forward to deepening its economic ties with the United States.
India-US economic ties benefit a lot from the technical expertise provided by skilled professionals, with both sides leveraging their strengths and competitive value. We look forward to further deepening India-US economic ties, which are to our mutual benefit.
To take the discussion forward, we are now joined by Mukesh Aghi, President and CEO at the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Aghi, let me begin by asking you, what's been your representation to the Trump administration right now with regard to H-1B visas? The Indian government's plea and view is this is a visa regime and Indians actually utilize this and help the US economy. It'll be the US companies which will be harmed if you crack down on this visa regime. What's your take?
Parikshit, Happy New Year to you. Basically, the issues of
wishing
supply
you a very happy New Year too, sir.
Thank you. The issues of supply and demand. You have a U.S. economy which is growing, especially in the AI space, cybersecurity, quantum computing. It requires highly intelligent, hardworking workers. And when you look at the chip plants being set up in the U.S., in Arizona, Ohio, New York, one of the biggest challenges we have is that we have shortage of workers. So the game of supply and demand is showing that demand is higher than supply itself. And that's the reason companies go out and seek H-1B workers itself. So the US companies benefit a lot. What we have seen is that if you basically reject 10 visas for workers to come here, 9 out of 10 jobs move out of the US to external countries itself. The other stat I like to mention is that for every 10% reduction in H-1B visa, it has an impact of $86 billion on the GDP of the US economy itself. I think the challenge is it's not about H-1B visa. The challenge is all about abuse of H-1B visa by some of the companies itself. Most of the companies tend to hire legitimate people who come in and become productive day one. But you have staffing companies which have basically gamed the system, and that's what's giving the bad name to H-1B system itself. So overall, our position is that H-1B is good for US companies, is good for the economy itself, and it basically helps US companies become more efficient, more effective, more competitive on a global basis.
Right. What would be your recommendation to the Trump administration? Donald Trump today has said that, he likes H-1B visas. They would like to attract the right talent. Do you think the Trump camp will be balanced when putting any further safeguards in place?
Yes, I think you will see more safeguards coming in. So the abuse of H-1B is basically avoided. And the safeguards would be is raise the barrier on the salary structure itself. But more important, the thinking is why don't we basically reach out to the US educated international students who are in the PhD program, in the graduate program, doing STEM work, and give them a pathway to get working permits in the US. So I think that's what the thinking is. Yes, they will put guardrails to make sure the abuse does not happen. But more important is leverage those people who have gone to the US education system and give them the pathway to work in the US itself.
Okay, now in terms of the business relationship and the take on India, what do you think is the current thinking within the Trump camp as far as the tariffs on India and products lines which could be impacted?
Well, we have seen and heard so much in regards to tariffs in China, external countries such as Mexico, Canada, and you have, Trump has called India the tariff king itself. It is important to understand tariff is being used as a negotiating process also. It is important that India proactively start working with Trump administration to see where they see those issues are. For example, India has a $45 billion trade surplus with the US. The last Trump administration, India had only $25 billion. How do you basically leverage that so it becomes more of an equalizer than one country having a much more surplus than the other itself? But more important is, I think the Trump administration is not just looking at India from a tariff perspective. They're looking at India more from market access, level playing field, ease of doing business. So you will see those issues cropping up as discussion basically get more and more closer in regards to the economic collaboration between the two countries. You have to understand the strategic alignment between India and the US is very, very strong. The Quad, which India is going to host sometime this year, and we expect President Trump to attend that, is critical, especially dealing with Indo-Pacific. It is critical dealing with the supply chain, especially in the area of medicine, in the area of basically electronics itself. So I think India has a much, much bigger role to play with Trump administration. And the issue of tariffs should be not become an aberration between the partnership itself. So I think our advice to the government of India is be proactive, deal with the issue, because I think the win of Trump is good for India.
Right. Also to ask you about the terror attacks that we've seen in the United States over the past few weeks. How do you think this puts the Trump administration's position in? Are we going to see some stricter measures when it comes to deportation, stricter measures when it comes to illegal immigrants into the United States?
Well, when you look at illegal immigration is impacting legal immigration. The third largest illegal immigrants to the US now is the Indian community. But more important is you have roughly around 16 million illegal in the US itself, and approximately 1 million have gone through the legal process, which will probably get deported. So from a political perspective and from a basically process perspective, you will see a massive effort of deportation. Roughly, we have around 140,000 Indians who are in that stature also. And the thinking from the government of India side is they're willing to take those Indians back as long as there's a proper verification that they really are Indians. But more important is I think you have to understand, a lot of Indians are coming into the US illegally from the northern border, which is Canada. They come into Canada legally and then move into the US side itself. So the porousness of Canadian border is a big issue. The laxity on part of Canadian government trying to control that is a challenge. So I think you will see by January 20th, as whenever President Trump is sworn in, immediate impact of trying to deport large number of those people who have gone through a very strong legal process itself. And India will get impacted by 120,000 of those people who have been lapsed their legal challenges on their asylum seeking in the US itself.
All right, Mr. Aghi, thank you very much for joining us on the program. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC TV 18 for more updates.